Laura, I want to turn to you. So you've been cared for by family members and by professionals. Are there differences that make one better than the other?
I can't really speak to better because the professional aspect of that has only been like within the past 2 years full-time professional care as opposed to like 28 years of the other one.
Right, of course.
So I don't think it's fair to have any kind of partiality in that respect just based on sheer numbers. But
We'll follow up in a few years then.
yeah, like 28. But there are definitely differences with the informal system. There's a lot less of figuring out compatibility because the informal system is almost pre-screened because you know the person. Think about it, if you've ever asked somebody for a letter of reference, you would obviously want a letter of reference from someone you trust as opposed to a business, which is like, I know you need someone and we have somebody available.
Right.
So that's a plus. With the informal situation, there's a lot less of the vetting in advance, and I'm still learning to deal with like the professional boundaries of that, which is kind of why I wasn't commenting on that, because that's still a struggle for me at this point in my life. I guess with the informal system, there's a level of separation from that, like that when done the right way would allow you to have your own life. I'm going to dish on my friend who is my ride, who was my informal caregiver for like 7 years. When I moved out to my own apartment about a year ago, I was living with my parents and she point blank said, I don't think I want to work for you when you move because A, the hours will be different, and B, we know each other too well. And like, and I do love Liz to death. I hope you can hear me. She's in the room in the back. We know what makes each other tick, which was decided on before I moved out might be an issue.
Yeah. So you are one of 3 kids in your family
Yes.
with cerebral palsy.
Yes.
So your parents had their hands full, to say the least.
Yes.
What was that like, and where are you in the sibling hierarchy?
I am the oldest, if you cannot tell by how loud I'm being. That's every time somebody asks my mother that, my mom's like, she's the oldest if that's not obvious to you already. Speaking of noise, can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
It's a CP thing that my voice goes in and out, so I'm used to being told to speak up, so please do. Either speak up or shut up. I'm used to either one of those, so it's fine. But we all have CP, but we all have different levels of CP that affects us differently. Like, they are a bit more ambulatory than myself. So like, there are parts of the experience that we can relate to, and then parts of it that are all our own. I would say I've developed a lot more understanding of how they might view the world as I've gotten older, because since relying on more professional caregivers, I've had to do more for myself in terms of like my computer and my day job, because the caregiving thing is like household basics and stuff, and not so much like the computer basics that stuff. When I was growing up, I used to be like, why would asking for help ever bother you. You can do so much for yourself and blah blah blah, this, that, and the other thing. And now that I'm able to do more for myself, but going into snail's pace, it's like, okay, I get it now. Maybe you don't always feel like that's available all the time. And it's also kind of interesting because out of the three of us, like, I'm like the disability rights loudmouth with all the history and stuff. I could go on about the ADA for a while, and my siblings are like, I don't want to be bothered beyond what will get me into a building. So it's sort of an interesting experience.
Going back to the difference between the formal caregiver system, professional help, and the informal system relying on family, we had talked a little before about the difference when, say, your mom needed a break versus when a professional caregiver needs a break. There might be someone to replace them. Can you speak a little bit about that?
First of all, I will speak from a practical standpoint. I've been blessed with a support system, and I recognize that that's not available for everyone. So when there is a support system, like my mom had my grandparents around, we had friends who, one of them was a special ed professor and would often refer his students to us as babysitters. I don't know if this person is listening or anything, but grateful for that. So, like, we had a support system of people who were available. That's one aspect of it. And then if you go through an informal caregiving thing, I like the way you put that. There might be someone to replace them because sometimes there are staffing issues with the agencies and stuff, which is a concern, especially when you think about it. There's a lot of people needing services, and I find a lot of times with the agencies, if they know you have an informal support system, which wouldn't change the informal support system for the world, it's almost harder to find a formal replacement because the baseline assumption is from the formal support system, the informal support systems are always going to be there, which makes finding informal support kind of hard. That's the more literal aspect. Then there's the figurative aspect. If you have an informal person and you know what makes them tick and they're having a really bad, like, I'm gonna use the phrase needing a mental health day, although it's not always like a full-on crisis. I want to make sure I'm not making light of that. If you know someone on an informal level and know their tics and there's less boundaries, it's easier to tell someone and for someone to say to you, I need a break. In the formal professional sense, we are all expected to, as part of our culture, regardless of our career, don't bring your garbage to work.
Right.
So the informal caregivers come to you with a lot of stuff. Maybe there are workplace issues. Maybe there are other issues with other institutions, social institutions. Sorry, I got a sociology background, so you're gonna be getting a lot of that. But maybe there's other baggage going on, and because you are one part of their life, you are the work component of the work-life balance, they might not always be as willing to tell you, okay, I got a lot of ish going on, which makes interactions kind of challenging.
Right.
My concern always when somebody comes in with people liked it when I use the word itch. I can tell the laughter from the audience, so I'm going to use it again. When people come in with a lot of ish going on, my baseline thought is like, I need help transferring in and out of chairs and with like a lot of daily tasks. So like my priority number one is to make sure we are on the same page with the things that I need, because my care is a collaborative effort. I can direct my care, and my priority number one is making sure that I am doing that to the best ability that I can. So my baseline when somebody comes in with an ish day is, oh my gosh, there's a problem with the way I'm articulating this. And it's really hard because sometimes caregivers come in with their ish from other sources and because of the way we've been trained as a society to deal with emotional labor in the workplace, they don't tell me. They technically work for me, so but which is good, and I respect boundaries and professional things are important for some extent, but like, you're holding my body weight. I can tell you're distracted, and I don't know why. It's a recipe for feeling secure and safe.
Yeah.
No, it's really not. But yeah. There's the literal aspect of the actual staffing, and then there's the actual kind of dealing with the communication aspect of knowing somebody needs a break and not being sure what you can ask. If that makes any sense.
Absolutely.